Hey everyone! Seeing as how I'm once again getting ready to take a trip on Monday, for a week, I figured now's as good a time as any to do this video that I've been wanting to do for a while. Also, it just so happens that with Inside Out 2 coming this month, most anticipated film this month, and one character I'm looking forward to see most is the new Emotion Anxiety, voiced by Maya Hook, daughter of Ethan. It definitely got me thinking about how other recent animated films that I've talked about before and enjoyed have dealt with the subject their own way, eh? Especially ones I've spoken about before and quite highly of. So, with that in mind, let's revisit both Turning Red and Puss in Boots' Last Wish, which I managed to watch again before doing this, to see how they dealt with the subject and go over, in their own ways, found out how to animate anxiety. So, let's begin. The first major point to address between these two films is how, in their own unique ways, the framing and presentation of the visuals is integral to how all the emotional states are conveyed, as they are in any good animated film, heck, any good film of any kind for that matter, where that from the opening moments of each movie, we get a good solid sense of how of who these characters are and how they operate within their respective worlds. Owns the 2002 Toronto and Turning Red and the fairy tale kingdom of Puss in Boots, where even though they definitely are good at projecting outward energy, it quickly becomes apparent there's more to each of these characters than they initially let on. And just how expressive they and everyone else in the film are is vital. And this won't be the last time we mention this in any video or this one, but it is inherently clear to me that in their own unique ways that the acclaimed success of Spider-Verse has more or less forced numerous others to adapt, and fortunately, it definitely does so in ways that are quite unique. I mean, pulling inspiration from anime in both cases, and also in the latter one, everything from a storybook look and feel to even spaghetti westerns, and which definitely is vital. Like even when there's scenes with no dialogue going, or even any music, which will be touched upon again, the other 2 points, means how much information will give to us visually to show us where the story is going and how the characters are interpreting it. So let's continue. The second way that these movies deal with the topic is how they manage to escalate things quickly. That's, in a sense, and each movie is only about an hour and 40 minutes plus change, so they need to make every moment count the best they can. Not just in terms of playing things for humor, but also playing things seriously as well. Oh, and that's definitely becomes quite clear with each one's assigned incident, with in the case of May with the red peony blooming, and in the case of Puss, when he's informed he's on the last of his 9 lives, and after the very bizarre fever dream we get in the former film, and the montage of each death in the latter, we see how they deal with the news fairly quickly afterwards, both in the universe. In Turning Red's same morning, and in Puss in Boots it's later that same night as well. Oh, that's And let's definitely focus on Puss in Boots for sake of argument, where he's at the tavern having some good leche. Hey, something I didn't notice on earlier viewings that it's pretty subtle, but I picked it up just watched it again this evening, where a flash of lightning appears right before the Bit by Wolf, who is the angel of death in this movie story. He pulls up a chair and a drink next to him and asks for his autograph on his wanted poster right on the dead of Wanted Dead or Alive, which basically creates an incredibly tense atmosphere, even in scenes where he's not always physically present throughout the entire movie. And it definitely ends up being one of the most effective villains they've had in ages. As going back to Turning Red, there's another one of their Pixar's efforts where they don't really have villain in conventional sense, and the conflict comes from the ups and downs of everyday life, as it often does. As growing up at that age is never any picnic for anyone, and especially when you have turned into a red panda when you experience strong emotional state, which at that age happens fairly often, and also manages to take, even in terms of both when it's played for laughs and for drama, that having conflict with people you care about, especially as your own family, is something completely natural. Well, that's and both the desire to honor their legacy and follow her own path are ultimately touched upon, how both are needed to keep the peace. And now comes the part that has been touched upon in Puss in Boots many, many times. The scene in Dark Forest, there's no music, even dialogue between Puss and Perito. And yes, even I understand how effective it is as someone, especially knowing Banderas was able to very effectively do this, given how he at times making movies recovering from a heart condition, and it has definitely a one I would definitely appreciate being incorporated further, and in other movies be more willing to engage with this topic no matter who they're aimed at. In Turning Red, it's not quite as dramatic as that, but it works a different way. Where when her friends come to her window after having the in-class meltdown and subsequent and chase through the streets of Toronto and across the rooftops, they're able to talk her down and get back to her center by doing something simple as beatboxing into their favorite band, which I actually would argue is actually a bit more effective than the usual stock phrases, and whenever you include something, I like it when things are connected to the story and the characters rather than being adjacent to them, and so it'll be something I will definitely be very eager to address in the third and final point I'll be touching on here. Hmm. As you can tell by what I've said about these movies in the past, what I've chosen to draw my place and myself with, I've always liked the idea of a fantastic journey doubling as a personal one, and that's something that becomes highly apparent in the denouement of these films and how they manage to prove the old adage I've taken to heart, especially when I was learning about it. I mean, to do what makes you anxious and not what makes you depressed. Where this being the case, also further exemplifies how, more often than not, the anxiety one might feel before they start to do something is nothing compared to the thrill when they pull it and it's definitely. I know this may not have been intentional, on the Death Wolf's part in Puss in Boots and Last Wish, or perhaps it was, and he just never outright said it when, and during the final battle atop the Wishing Star, or the Filled Earth, was that Puss realized that was never about reclaiming the lives he once had, but in fact, valuing the time he has left with his allies as well as other characters he met in the course of his journey. He, and that's also definitely the ideal catalyst for any potential stories that might come next. Likewise, I especially like juxtaposition and of the Turning Red finale as well, where you can have this whole kaiju battle or Dynamax Pokemon fight inside the Toronto Sky Dome, as a spectacle of sight and sound, but the real reveal came in the bamboo forest that serves as a generational space between spaces, where even though they were at odds at times, it becomes clear here that the blood of the spirit runs through all their veins, and Maylin is very much her mother's daughter when she runs into the appearance of her mother's teenage self and looking in almost exactly as lost and unsure of herself as her when she first encountered her condition. And also it leads to a new phase in both their lives, and definitely made a key reason why it's among the films they released in this decade so far. As for why they weren't addressing that war going on at the time, I would simply state, do the world remember me they knew? Hey, I said I supported Rob's attempts to branch out as an actor. Never said the attempt was successful. At any rate, I am certainly glad that I was able to revisit these again, especially before I see Inside 2 later this month. I mean, I won't be able to make opening weekend or opening dates. I'll be out of town then, but as soon as I'm able to, I'm definitely jumping at the chance to see Inside Out 2. I mean, as for this reported upheaval at Pixar itself, well, I don't feel as strongly about those others. I'm certainly don't feel the need to make a whole other video about that matter because I read that interview before, or it trended, and it seems to corroborate what I already knew was in the works, or within the next couple of years. I mean, as I'm not going to say that they're quote unquote cooked, I would simply instead say let them cook. Look, I mean, for a while. It could be every bit as tasty as some of those pork buns with some good leche as well. Anyway, that'll be all for now, and I will see you all again very soon. Take care, everyone.